Morning to all of you, and glad to be connecting to all of you. So, first of all, a disclaimer that I am not an expert in the library sciences, but I believe that most of you are uh, the experts in the library science. So, what I'm really going to be talking to you about is, as somebody mentioned during the introduction, that I love books, I love the written word, and obviously, as somebody who has loved written words, I have had a long association with the libraries. And I have been lucky to be associated with libraries across this country and few abroad. I and like anybody who loves books, I have a lot of friends who love books, and therefore, not only I'm going to talk to you about my own perspective, but I also reached out while thinking about this talk to some of my friends across the world who love books. And some of what I'm going to talk to you is also something that some of my friends very generously shared with me. Broadly, I'm going to talk about what the libraries have been doing, what they do, and what they perhaps can aid in future. And what has changed, the fundamental disruptor, if we can use the word, in the recent decades has been the technology, that is the digital technology. And I'm going to talk this not in some sequence, but I'm going to be moving from one to the other. So if we ask ourselves this question, that what is the fundamental purpose of a library, I would say that if you are to define it in few words, not even few sentences, we can say that a library is a depository of and a source of access to the authentic information. I hope that everybody will agree with this description of a library, shorn of how it looks physically, what format it takes in the future. A library essentially has to meet this purpose: source of access to authentic information, depository of authentic information. If we take that as a kind of fundamental purpose of a library, then let us see what libraries have been doing in the current times and what we can see in the foreseeable future. So, libraries, if we see, one is they are connecting people, they are connecting people to the information, they're also connecting people uh, to people, because they are increasingly, they have always been, but they are increasingly social hubs. Libraries also contribute to the vitality of the local economies. How they do it? Because in today's world, you see that lot of people use libraries as a meeting ground, especially post COVID, when the hybrid work culture has come into vogue. People are increasingly converging to the libraries for meeting, for using the resources which a library provides, which is sometimes free or sometimes very low cost source of Wi-Fi and internet. Libraries increasingly provide printing services. Libraries also provide, in certain places, conferencing venue and meeting venue. Libraries are also, of course, gateways to knowledge and culture, and libraries increasingly are also meeting grounds for people. Now, As we can see that this purpose, these are some of the purposes which the libraries have been meeting. Do all the libraries do that? Just one second. Tell me. Okay. Right. Sorry for that pause. So, if we look at Indian scene, most of the libraries in India are basically institutional libraries located in universities and in some of the schools. We don't have, unfortunately, a very extensive network and a uniform network of public libraries. A lot of great municipal corporations like Mumbai Municipal Corporation, Chennai Municipal Corporation, they do have public libraries. A lot of states do have libraries even at the village level, at taluka level, at district level. Maybe almost most of the country has a district library. But we don't have the tradition of community library spread across the country the way it is there in some of other countries of the world. For example, in the USA, where almost every county, every city has got a very well funded library system. So, looking at the current reality, I feel that one of the things that the university library can do is it can open its doors to not only its students and faculty members and other research scholars, but it can try and open its door to the other members of the public based on certain criterion. I want to give you the example of where I sit today, which is at the Gokhale Institute. And the Dr. Gadgil Library here is a library which came before the Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics was set up. So, because of this very interesting history, this has always been open. Its membership has always been open to the public. So, the library is 100 years old. The institute is 90 plus year old, and Gokhale Institute as a university is less than 50-year old. So, we have a university where the public library is a public library, not only open to the scholars, but also open to the general public. And people in Pune, especially the young students who may not always have access to very expensive resources, have come and made use of it. I know personally some of my colleagues in civil services who, during their civil services preparation, came to the Dr. Gadgil Library in Pune, which is housed in the Gokhale Institute campus, and made use of it. So one of the things I would like to see in the India is that till we are able to fund libraries across the country through the municipality, through the government funding in the village and taluka level, can we have libraries which which are housed in a university campus but open to the public. Second issue, which digital revolution and the whole increasing digitalization tells us is that today what is important is how the content is delivered and how it can be accessed. So I'll give you the example of music. Couple of decades back, if you wanted to listen to music, you bought first what we used to call as a cassette. So you bought an entire cassette, then the CDs came and you had to buy the entire CD. But today, the format of the delivery is you buy one single song which you like, and you may buy it only for one use, which is you may just want to listen to the song once and you pay for it once. Similarly, for the written word, now you have JSTOR and other databases which are frequently accessed by the librarians, and through that library, through the membership of the library, it is made available to the scholars. Now, in a typical J-star accession, you look for one single article and may not be necessarily the entire journal. So this is similar to the content delivery which is there in the music industry. This this is something which has changed from the past, and I expect that this is going to become more and more dominant in the future. And all the librarians have to take note of this if they have to remain relevant. So that is one thing that has changed through the because of the digital technology. Another thing I'm sure that all of you would have noticed is that very few people, especially the younger people, are accessing library by visiting it physically. A lot of young people access a library, but they try to access it online. So what can be done about it? I think this trend is going to continue. We are not going to change the society. The library will have to change, which means it will have to give more and more of its content, deliver it in the format that the users want it. Of course, you'll have to negotiate licensing requirements, you'll have to negotiate copyright issues, you'll have to negotiate all other legal issues. But this is another kind of new development that all of us can see, and this is only going to continue happening in the future. But at the same time, will this brick and mortar library is going to become irrelevant? I don't think so, for several reasons. One is that libraries are reinventing themselves across the world. They are reinventing themselves in India. Their display formats are changing. Some of the space which is cleared by adding less physical books and increasing more digital assets, that space is being converted for other activities. Libraries are hosting seminars, libraries are hosting meet an author, libraries are even hosting yoga programs. Libraries are becoming a hub of exchange of ideas, hub of exchange of information. And this trend, I feel, is going to continue and should continue. And we'll have to reimagine the library space. We'll have to reimagine how we display the books. And some of the inspiration may even come from the purist may be horrified, but it may come from maybe the grocery retail. So you go to a mall and how they display their groceries and other stuff, some of it may give clue to the future libraries. And I can see that is happening already. I got educated in an institution called BITS Pilani. I was there as a student from 89 to 93. So the library of my student days and the library today has totally changed. It has moved to a new building, but the display has changed. The experience of accessing library facilities has changed. I'm not saying that I like everything. Earlier, when I used to issue the books, I could chat with a human being, with an attendant. Today, you want to issue a book, you go to a kiosk and issue a book. Maybe it's not to everybody's liking, but that's how it is happening. And we'll have to be aware of it. In late 80s and early 90s, when I would want to see whether a book is in the catalog, one looked at a index card, a physical index card. And if you're a nostalgic person, there was certain romance about looking up those index cards. But today, you can access the information about the library's collection without actually physically visiting the library. That's happening. I don't think that that is going to stop or we can stop that trend. That is going to continue. Uh, Talking about again the Indian scenario, uh, I want to share a couple of interesting things that have been done. I want to take three examples, and they illustrate how creatively we can meet the purpose of the library, which is to provide authentic information to those who want to access it. So in Odisha, Bhubaneswar, there is a foundation called Bakul Foundation, and they have set up several libraries purely with small donations, and they run it purely on voluntary basis. So they typically get books donated by patrons, and they run their library through the volunteers. Now, not only they have a physical library, but they also take library to the parks, they take library to the underprivileged areas, to the slums. So they have a library on cycles. They also publish books. So that brings me to another point, that libraries can also be not only the provider of information, but they also can help local histories, local talents, local folklores, local technology, local talent to come up. So this is what Bakul Library do, and some of you might be knowing about it. Those of you who don't know about it, I would urge them to look them up on their website. One more very interesting experiment or initiative that has been done is in Jammu and Kashmir by the Indian Army. So in a place called Kalakot in Rajouri district, the army authorities will take crates of books to the schools, to the local madrasas, and even to the local bus stops where people converge. And they will display these books, and people can read the books while the books are on display. Children can read the books. Uh, uh, Children in madrasas can read the books and get inspired. The point is that libraries are democratic spaces, they are inclusive spaces, they are spaces where people of all classes, all religions, all economic strata should be able to access knowledge. And some of the creative way in which it can be done is that there may be sections of society who may feel intimidated to come to a very big, posh library of a university. Can the library take itself to those people, at least to give them some confidence? So that is one thing that can be done. One more initiative I want to talk about is there is this institution called Vidya Pratishthan in Baramati. Again, they carry library on the wheels, and they not only carry books, but they also carry in a bus. They have transformed a bus into basically internet notes. So on a seat, instead of a on a bus seat, instead of a passenger seat, you have a table on which computers are there with internet connectivity, and some physical books are there, and the bus travels from place to place, and students and other citizens can access that library. The bus goes, stands in a locality for the entire day. People can access internet, people can access books. So while keeping to its own purpose, can the library reinvent itself all the time? Now, I had used this word in the beginning, authentic information. So in the digital era, we all agree that there is an explosion of information. Some of it is authentic, Some of it is fake, some of it is deliberately fake, some of it is malicious, some of it is deliberately malicious. So, libraries are those places which are the providers of authentic information. They are the providers of validated information. They are the providers of scientific and truthful information. So, that is one role which I see will never go out of fashion. I can tell you again of from my personal history. During my teenage years, like any teenager, I had lot of anxieties about things like pimples growing on my face, things like, am I growing properly? Is my height right for my age? Is my weight right for my age? I was a very thin boy, and I thought that maybe I'm not growing properly. I remember going to the library and looking up that for somebody who is 16-year-old, typical Indian person, what should be the correct height, correct weight, and what should be the correct vitals. And when I read the authentic information, I was reassured. Similarly, there may be countless number of other people who were desperately looking for some authentic information. It need not be, I'm not only talking about political information, I'm talking about day-to-day information. And libraries can serve that role. One more human point I again want to take from my own personal experience. I went to some of the loveliest institutions this country has. I went to a school called Vidyabhavan in Udaipur, which was set up in 1931 at the peak of India's quest for independence. And incidentally, that was the first full-fledged library I had seen. And I still remember the name of my librarian, Sri Khemrajji, and he saw my love for the books, and he will encourage me in different ways. There used to be expensive books which he used to keep locked up, but he will open it for me. Then I went to another school called Billa School Pilani. Similarly, the librarian there was very kind, helped me in different ways. I went to college in BITS Pilani in IGIDR. The librarians will go out of their way to help me in locating a particular book that I was looking for, locating a particular research article that I had been looking for. So, this role of hand holding is another role I think the librarians, I'm sure that all do. And I have been to so many libraries, and I have never come across a librarian or library assistant who was not helpful, who was not kind, who was not encouraging to me. But I want to talk about the divide, not just the digital divide, but the literacy divide. In India and across the world, we still have a lot of people who cannot even read and write. Can the librarians today and in future take upon themselves to bridge this divide and make sure that some of the people who are seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom, they are helped despite their obvious handicap of illiteracy or despite their handicap of maybe digital illiteracy. So that is another place where the librarians can play a vital role. Then I talked about library being social hubs. Many of young people or people who are young at heart, no longer young in numbers, would remember at a lighter note, of course, that maybe when they wanted some quality time with their significant others, library was the space where they could spend some time with each other. Not only that, there are people who in bigger cities feel lonely. They can come to the library, socialize. Elderly people who are in need for the community spaces. women who need some safe space outside homes, library can provide and does provide all of these spaces. And when we are designing spaces for the future library, we should keep all of this in mind. So these are some of my thoughts. I don't want to talk about the obvious things, that things like artificial intelligence, things like machine learning, things like natural language programming. These are going to impact the library of the future. The challenge is to seize the opportunities these developments present, make sure that these tools, just as they become fabric of our day-to-day lives, they become fabric of the library experience, that the library experience for a common user becomes more and more friendly, more and more easy, and uh, more and more efficient. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share with you. I don't think that in the foreseeable future the physical format library is going to go away. The brick and mortar library is going to stay. Its purpose, the fundamental purpose of being the repository of the knowledge, fundamental purpose of the civilization's transmission of civilization's accumulated knowledge, passing it from generation to generation, I don't think that is ever going to change. What will change is the format in which this is delivered is going to change. Maybe the format of the physical space, the way in which it is going to be organized, will change. Maybe the librarian of the future will have to be more nimble footed to make sure that it caters and evolves to the evolving need of the community. But I see a great and very bright future, and in fact, more enhanced future for the library. I also hope that in India, the library movement gathers more strength, and not only it remains confined to the academic campuses, but it becomes part of our civic infrastructure, basic civic infrastructure. And I hope that all of you, as library professionals and lovers of books, campaign for greater funding from the government, from the corporates, from the corporate social responsibility funds, to set up more libraries which are pure public libraries and not exclusively academic libraries. Before I close, I want to quote from the great philosopher that we had, the poet Tagore. So I have two of his quotes when he talked about the library. I'm going to read it for you. This is from Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. So he says, a library can be thought of as a tower of silence, like a sleeping child which embodies the entrapped vibrations of an age-old ocean. Here, language is still like a calm mass of water that has stopped flowing. Men's unbounded enlightenment, shackled with words, is imprisoned in black and white. If all these sublime aspirations of the quest of human mind suddenly finds expression, if the rebellious words find fly in all directions, it will be akin to a torrent from the melted ice of the Himalayas. The library encloses within itself this very deluge of the ardent expressions of human souls. And finally, again, quoting from Tagore, inside a library, we feel like standing at the crossroads of thousands of avenues. Some paths lead to infinite seas, some take us to endless peaks, and some penetrate deep inside the human heart. One may chart out in any of the multitudes of directions without hindrances. And he says human emancipation is contained within the four walls of the library. So, with that, I come to the close of this very short presentation. I'll be glad to take some questions. I would not even say questions because, as I said, I'm not an expert. I'm sure that you know much more about the libraries and about the library science than me. But I'll be very happy to interact for the next few minutes. And before I open for the questions, I want to acknowledge some of my friends whom I reached out to as I was framing my thoughts for this talk. So, in no particular order, Nirmal Bhagwati of United States, USA, Saurav Ray of Government of India, JP Mishra of Government of India, Gautam Bhattacharya of Presidency University, Gauri Iyer, my teaching assistant, Mandita Brahmachari of US Patent Office, Colonel D.D. Swine of the Indian Army, who had done the Rajouri experiment, Sujit Mohapatra of Bakul Foundation Library in Bhubaneswar, B.P. Sarangi, a dear friend of mine. And the final acknowledgement is to Nanaji Shevale, our librarian, who very kindly invited me to be with you. And my final thanks to all of you who joined to listen to me. Thank you. And now I open the conversation. Prashant Pimpotkar wants to walk in. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Prashant, you can ask your question.
Gauri ma'am, can you just fill this water with that?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, morning, Prashant ji.
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Mr. Santosh Koditkar is there?
Sir, my question is, which type of new facility we have to use in our library to increase the interest of readers?
I feel that one is that readers want to know about your library and your collection online. I think this is very clear.
Okay.
So perhaps digitize, you may not be able to digitize your resources, but you may be able to digitize as a first step information about your resources. And your first interaction with your prospective reader will be more likely to be digital than physical. I say first interaction. So I think that can be made very welcoming.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.